intergender, it's got females. You know, you've got places that are
London Lucha League,
obviously.
Yeah.
Like, it's getting there, and the attitude is changing.
Mm-hmm.
It just needs to keep going that way. Because there are some places with, you know, I've heard like trainees on group chats saying some pretty nasty stuff about girls.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, they're getting fewer and further apart. They're weeding themselves out, which I like. You know?
Yeah, I hope so. The wrestler, by the way, who I couldn't remember the name, and she's going to kill me when she ever listens, but is Nikita from the FWO, who later would be known in WWE as Katie Leah Burchill. Like, she played the sister character to him at the time. If everybody remembers that terrible gimmick they put on him as the pirate, he'd do well this year at WrestleMania with that whole theme they've got going on. But
pirate,
yeah, we watched a video about that the other day, didn't we?
Yeah, loved the pirate.
Yeah, I've got some funny stories about that. But he now, believe it or not, he's a teacher. He works as a teacher now. Old Paul Burchill.
He wasn't at an AEW throwing chairs, was he?
No,
I can't remember.
I saw a clip last night of some guy at AEW like throwing chairs into the ring and screaming, "I'm a goddamn school teacher." I have no idea. It's just really bad.
Yeah, I mean, like for you, Jack, like the UK scene's probably evolved quite fast, I would imagine, like seeing it like over time. And obviously, like you spoke about the FWA, like to be honest with you, the FWA London, pretty much like that was the go-to. Bethnal Green, York Hall, those shows were going on quite regular, and it was a very specific genre of fans that we had, and I don't know that it could have ever expanded to where some of the promotions like Progress have got it to and stuff like that. But it certainly was maybe one of the only few in town. But what's crazy to think, and I say this all the time, is that you've still got some of the guys from then that are still performing now on the circuit. You know, Jody Fleisch is still very active, Johnny Storm, which is unbelievable, really, because they look like they haven't aged, first and foremost, and secondly, they're working just as crazy as they once were there. And you've got sort of the old guard of them, and then you've got all this vibrant new talent coming out of just absolutely everywhere. And then obviously you see what's happening with NXT UK and the amount of talent they've got in their pool is quite big as well. And I think the gap now, thankfully, for a UK wrestler to be able to get their name out there, I would say it's probably hasn't been as good as this for forever, in my opinion, just that connection and the closeness to it. What's your sort of like perception, I guess, of the UK industry at the moment as a whole? Like, do you think it is going to go one way? Like when all this finishes, do you think that that UK wrestling will start? You know, there's going to be even more promotions come along, or do you think slowly but surely, you know, the sort of it will come down to the best will survive, and they'll sort of have to take up, you know, that sort of time in spaces?
I don't think necessarily that there's going to be like more promotions pop up. I certainly think there's going to be more fans, for sure, because with the pandemic as it is, and people isolating themselves and looking for content to watch, I think we're going to have, through social media, YouTube, companies giving away like free matches to fans already. I reckon we're gonna create new fans, like, of wrestling in general, as well as stars on the circuit creating like new fans. I mean, me personally, because you mentioned like Jody and Johnny, the amount of matches that I've seen them wrestle like in the last week alone through like old clips wrestling on the circuit is it's unbelievable, you know. But like, I just think I think once we get out of this, it's just going to be nothing but positive. Nothing positive for like the whole wrestling scene, for like wrestlers, for promoters, for fans, like everyone is going to be itching to go out there.
Yeah, it's almost like the demand. It's going to be high.
Oh yeah, like definitely. I mean,
yeah.
Now
for
company, the last company that we wrestled for before the whole lockdown thing come into effect, World War Wrestling. That the promoter there put on us versus the Hit Set for the tag titles as a free match, and I think in the space of like 3 to 4 days, it had already reached 1.5 thousand views.
Right, yeah, that's massive.
And like that's to me, like in the space of like a few days, and that's insane to me that 1,500 people has taken the time to sit down and watch us versus the Hit Set, and I thank each and every one of those fans. And I just hope that even like half of them come out and like once this is all done and spend a ticket to come watch me and Taylor wrestle wherever we end up next once this is all over. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. And for both of you, like who are some of the best people you've worked with like in the industry thus far? Like who have you come out of a match with and thought, that's really raised my game a bit, or the bar's been changed a little bit, or you've learned something from? Who have been some of those like influential people that you've worked with thus far?
You can go first, babe.
Honestly, I think I learn from everyone that I work with. But most recently, I worked for DOA and Vortex against Madison Miles. She's incredible. And she's lovely, albeit a bad guy. I think a couple years ago, I refereed in a Johnny Storm match, and I think I learnt more from that than I did wrestling anyone around that time. Just refereeing his matches. If you can get involved in a Johnny Storm match in any way, do it. This is so fun and educational. Oh gosh.
That's cool.
Everyone. You learn from everyone. I think Triumph, the Scramble match, which was my debut, that was a really good experience. Because you had such a mixed bag of, you had guys and girls, but you also had like talent. So you had like Max, he's a young lad who'd only been doing it like a couple years or so. You had Clementine, who would have thought she'd go on to be like the Triple L champion at that time.
Yeah.
Such a nice person as well.
She's so lovely. She works like so hard. You had some guys from Dropkicks like Rowan Blake. He's a bit of like a hidden gem.
Yep, definitely.
And then like Rocco Casanova, who's been working Yonks. Like that was really interesting, mixed bag. Oh, and Sam Dufresne, obviously.
He's the guy I always harp on about, Sam Dufresne. I always harp on about him because I just feel like he's he doesn't. I feel like with him, I don't know him, so I can't really. I've spoke to him a handful of times, but with Sam, I always feel like if he maybe put a little bit. If he had more self-confidence, I could see him being much bigger than he already is. Like I could see him going to that next level. He definitely got the look and he's got the ability as well, but he needs to be treated much like when I saw him at the Rumble at that DKW. They need to do that more with him. I feel like he needs to be the big guy, and less is more, I would say, with him. Like, don't overdo it, But he's a fantastic talent.
Definitely. I mean, touching back on like intergender wrestling, Triumph, we do birthday parties. Not sure if I'm allowed to talk about it or not, but I'm going to. So I had an intergender match with Sam Dufresne.
Right.
It's kind of like non-canon. I think we spent about maybe 2 minutes in the ring, either side of like the start and the end.
Right.
And it got such a good reception. Like, yeah, definitely less is more
from kids and parents. Like,
Yeah, kids and parents. The
Yeah,
parents
I
love
bet.
it. You know, like you can do so much. Yeah, definitely a lot of hidden gems. Like that's why you go to Triumph, I think.
Mm-hmm. So what about for you, Jack?
Oh, I've got like such a long list because I learned the majority of what I know now through like working people and like just working and getting the experience that way. So obviously I got to mention Taylor Essex.
Mm-hmm. How could you not?
I had my first
You'll
match.
be upset.
I had my got to drop the name for like he was like my first ever match. I got to him, and like it was so fun. It went really quickly. It felt really really quick. Like that my first ever match with him, but like
just to butt in there, just quickly before you finished. When you had that match with Taylor Essex, was that it? Was that the moment you thought there's a connection between us? We'd be a good team. Like, was it that instant, or did it take a little bit long? Because like, if that was your first match, that's pretty insane as it is. But then obviously you've ended up as this crazy tag team now. Like, how quick was that connection that you sensed that?
I think on that particular show, it was main evented by Paul Robinson versus I don't know. I probably shouldn't say his name. Georgie Flawn.
Right.
He went under a different time, and it was a bit bad. That's why I had to change that. But the two like top matches that people were talking about coming out of that show was the main event with Paul Robinson and mine and Taylor's match.
Mm-hmm.
So like that, like people had a connection.
Yeah.
I think the main match where it was like solidified that we had that connection was when we had a last man standing match.
Mm-hmm.
It was. I still, like to this day, like I'll watch that match back fondly because I think that was where we had something to prove, and I think that was like what I think was the start of what made the rebellion what it is today, is because the pair of us had something to prove to like for ourselves, to each other, and to other people. So that's always, I think that that last man standing match was the pivotal moment for where right, yeah, okay, like this is the right decision to become a tag team and go forward with being a tag team. For sure. Paul Robinson's another. I wrestled like Paul Robinson, like probably like after I had like 10 matches, and I learned so much from him in that one match. Him beating me up. Him beating me up, and me like getting my licks in, and like making like a fighting back and making come back. I learned so much from him just in that one match. He's even though he's not like a hidden gem, because like anyone who's anyone like who's a UK wrestling fan or in the scene like knows of Paul Robinson, but he is. I think he's going to be a legend on the scene for sure. Very much like in the same vein as like a Jody and Johnny, like because they're considered legends, and like they're guys that people want to wrestle and get hyped for wrestling for, and want to under their learning tree to learn as much as possible from them. Who else have I? Jordan Breaks. I'll give a shout out to Jordan Breaks. I've had one match with him, but that was a really, really fun match just because like it was really, really nice to wrestle. Jordan Breaks' gimmick is like a throwback to the World of Sport days, and it was so nice to wrestle and grapple and go trade like hole for hole and like tell Tell us.